Hello, everybody, and today we are going to be talking about worshipping demons. I am going to be making this video as concise as I can, but I have written a 118 page book just for this purpose to get people initiated into worshipping demons. So, if this is a topic that you seriously are interested in, I would definitely suggest reading it. It is going to be available for free in the description down below, together with its Amazon link, in case you wanted to have a paperback version, because I can't just give you a whole bunch of free paper. For one thing, I can't hand you that through the screen. And secondly, just if you found the information interesting and valuable to you, and you wanted a way to give back to the author, by no means are you required to do that, because all of the things that come into that book are available for free in the PDF version. So, in case you're interested, the book is called Worshipping Demons 101 by Mirta, which is the writer's alias that I tend to go by. I must warn you, I will be battling my light for this whole video. I am already feeling quite self-conscious and it just kind of whoop whoop. So anyway, good place to start, I think, is why should you worship a demon as opposed to a god or an angel or any entity that's seen in a less bad or malicious way? Well, there is no real reason. In truth, all is spirit. The spirit world doesn't fall into such neat boxes as people would like to encase it in, where one is good and one is evil, and there's a never ending battle. All parts of life are necessary, all overseers of areas are necessary, and if you look into goetic demons, then the word daimones would apply a lot better to them, which just means wise spirit. In truth, you should go and follow whichever religion rings the truest in your heart, which direction you feel pulled to, because that is what's gonna come best to you naturally, unlike something that you try to force onto yourself. So don't like fall into this thought pattern of, oh, demons are evil, but they will absolutely provide what I need in life. I will be able to sell myself to eternal torture for a life of riches and bitches. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. So, if that is your attitude, I suggest packing it in right now. There is not a single spirit that can save you from life. Walking a left hand path, which is unorthodox and most often walked alone, is quite a difficult undertaking to do. But if this is where you naturally fall, then it is the only productive spiritual path that is good for you to actually take. And it can lead you onto a very fruitful, rewarding, and uplifting journey of developing self confidence and self esteem and learning to function better in society and fixing a lot of, frankly, toxic shit that a lot of us are probably carrying with us. So, people that worship demons don't tend to be all that different from all the other people. I keep on trying to tell that to people, but because there is just such a prejudice that that statement doesn't tend to ever go down well. So normally demon worshippers, unless they live in a very loud and outspoken country, won't ever disclose to you that they're following demons. But just so you know, it is a faith like any others. It is a religion like any others. Don't think that it is somehow superior or inferior to other beliefs, because this is This is what it is. It is beliefs. Now, if you want to seriously worship a spirit that is a demon, the first thing that I suggest to do is to create for yourself a place of worship. I find that an altar accomplishes this the best, but not all of us are privileged with being able to have physical depictions of the spirits that we worship. So, a digital altar or a picture that invokes the right kind of feelings will work as well. It's not as good as having the physical thing, but honestly, world is what it is. A lot of people need to hide their religion. We know that. We deal with it. Now, when you're assembling your either physical or digital altar, I would suggest one item that directly represents the spirit that you're planning on worshiping. This can be a statue of said spirit. Some of the spirits come described as having animal faces, and this makes it very easy because you can purchase a toy or purchase a plush of that animal. So, like, hey, he is known to show up with the face of a lion. Okay, well, lions are part of majority of zoo playsets. That is a very easy depiction to get. Hey, he comes riding on a crocodile. Well, even if you can't get a depiction of your god, you can get a depiction of their crocodile, and that becomes a very easy connection to make. When you can't get a depiction of the spirit itself, a depiction of what they do works just as well. So, for example, causes love, a Valentine's card, or is the keeper of secrets? Well, a locked diary. Even if you don't write in it, it will work because you will know what that association represents. Second thing that I recommend is a tablecloth or something to cover the whole surface in the color that is associated with the spirit. If you're going for a main goetic demon, this is going to be a lot easier than with some other spirits because their titles are code words for planets, and planets tend to have very, very specific associations. So if you know their title, you can know their planet, you can know their color. With other spirits that don't have colors disclosed, what you can do is go with the color associated with their area of expertise. Are they a spirit associated with death, for example? Well, in a lot of religions, death is black. Um, Lucifer, while having a direct association with Venus, is also the brightest star. And what are the colors that you associate with that? Well, normally you have something very bright and something very dark to contrast it. Therefore, white and black or silver and black work very well, as the idea is the brightest inside the darkest to exaggerate the brightest. You get the idea. You need something colorful and something straightforward for your brain to trigger that response of what you're looking at and what you're trying to invoke when you're trying to understand about the spirit. So the area that is dedicated to the portrayal of the spirit tends to be very important, and tends to, well, go down very well when you're trying to connect to a very specific god or demon or angel or what have you. Honestly, you can just apply this across entire spiritual field because demons are such a grab bag of random spirits that they do come from a very wide variety of other human boxes that we have placed them in. The last item that I suggest having on your altar is a sigil, and a sigil is a sign of the spirit. A lot of the Ars Goetic sigils, the way that you would make those it is, well, a bit derived by this point. We don't know the absolute exact way that they did it, was to take geometria, which is turning letters into numbers, and you would have the planetary square of the planet that represents the spirit, and you would literally draw lines from letter 1 to letter 2 to letter 3 and so on and so forth, after, changing them to math effectively. And when you can't do that very well, then you would imply you just have like more math to calculate stuff out. It becomes very complex. So Ars Goetic spirits have their sigils. You can look them up online if you want. Once again, in my resource in my book, their sigils are just there with the names. You can copy it. Do not be afraid if you can't like make a perfect sigil. These things are cleaned up for like modern publishing. If you look at like literal old medieval grimoires, squiggles galore. If it's slightly wonky, perfect. Like, it doesn't have to be clean. If your selected spirit does not have a sigil and does not have planetary associations, or you don't want to do whole math mumbo jumbo, what you can do is utilize the chaos sigil method, chaos magic sigil method. Normally it is done to project a sentence of desire into visual form and kind of in like put it in your head by making it easier to comprehend. Like, my book has this, by the way, on the cover. It's a tiny working that I am doing myself. I probably shouldn't be showing it to you. I thought it was, gonna go down well on a book about demons where people expect mythical mumbo jumbo, but this is a chaos magic sigil. I have a sentence of desire in here, and I have reduced it to very, very specific shapes, and I have arranged it in a way that is pleasant looking to me, except for this little hieroglyph over here. I am not gonna tell you what this is, but it's more connected to my own personal spirits than it is to, the rest of the working. Um, I have another one, by the way. This is another example of what a chaos magic sigil sentence of desire can look like. Yeah, Mirta's house is littered with funny symbols. Don't laugh. Not gonna show you any more of those, but yes, you can use the same method to reduce a spirit's name and create a personal sigil that's important to you. How you would do this is, first of all, dispose of all vowels. Secondly, dispose of all repeated letters, and then you have the essential letters that make up that name of the spirit. And for some, it's it ends up being very few letters. So if I take Abaddon, I am now doing this in my head, we have BDN. If I take Lilith, we now have LTH. And you now take those 3 letters and you arrange it in a way that doesn't quite expose that all you're working with is 3 letters, by making it into a picture, like geometric shape. If you need help, add extra shapes into it. You can add like little circles or squares or triangles. You want it to look pleasant to your brain, but you also don't want to overload it. I have examples of what I did for the spirits from Ars Goetia or Ducante hierarchy, which is S. Connolly's personal hierarchy, and this is not a video to talk about it. Very dubious those spirits can even be taken as demons. A lot of them are not something that's normally heard of. I'm just gonna call it her personal family spirits for the most part. But I took those two things, goetic spirits that come from the book Ars Goetia and Ducante hierarchy spirits, and for all of those that didn't have a sigil made and officially available, you can get Ducante hierarchy spirits sigils from S. Connolly, but then I have to ask very kindly, can I use it in the book? And I have done that once and she let me, but I don't want to do it again because that just creates a bit of a copyright nightmare. Like if somebody now takes my text and there's those sigils, am I also responsible for somebody now spreading material that doesn't technically belong to me? So what I did is I used the chaos sigil method to make a sigil for each one of them. And as you're gonna see, some of them maybe look okay, some of them look a bit dorky. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be like, don't think that, I fucked up. I can't like make pretty, it doesn't matter. It has to be meaningful for you. It has to invoke connection to that specific spirit for you. It doesn't have to look pleasant for anyone else. It doesn't have to be professional. Don't like box yourself in like that, especially when it comes to your personal spiritual practice. Always remember that it is your personal spiritual practice. It doesn't belong to anyone else. Now, when you have those three items, you have an altar. Congratulations. You have a place to connect with your spirit. Something that's gonna evoke the image of the spirit into your head. Something that's gonna remind you of the spirit whenever you look at it. And you are gonna use the space to slowly get acquainted and connect yourself to it. So the next step that we're gonna take is we're gonna make weekly offerings. And now offerings, if you want to hear me ramble on, kind of fall into three categories. The first category is associative offerings. You take what is associated with the planet, and the only reason why you're making this offering is to make the connection easier, because once again, you are using the offering in order to spark a thought, a thinky thought in your brain that connects you to the spirit. We just made a whole ass altar. Well, if you followed the steps, when you're gonna follow the steps, you're gonna make a whole ass altar. You don't necessarily need it. If you need a tiny bit of extra help, you can do it. But normally in like traditional grimoires, you would do that offering because you're not really worshiping the spirit, you're connecting to the spirit once to like make a request. So every little bit helps. But in here, we're talking about worshiping demons, which is a bit more pagan, a bit more like taking in a god into your household, you know, that sort of thing. Second type of offering is the offering of gratitude, of, wow, that's really cool. You are really cool. I really want to do something nice for you. And you know what? I like nice things. And I'm going to share those nice things with you. I really love this tea. Well, right now I have a cup of coffee, but I can pretend that it is tea. My mother sent me far too much coffee for my birthday. My whole house has more coffee than it can store. We have like 10 packs of compacted coffee. I don't know what to do with it outside of drinking it. So, drink is what I do. That was a bit of a tangent. Anyway, that is an offering of gratitude. Sharing what you like with the spirit that you like, not because you have to. This is very important. Not because you have to. If you don't do this, the sky won't fall down. Nobody's gonna strike you with lightning, but because you want to. And I do that in the form of being some sort of I can't think of an animal that likes shiny things, so I'm gonna call myself Skrit from Guild Wars 2. Probably a raven or a crow would work as well, because they like to, take a shiny thing and run away with it. That is me when I go outside and I see things that really look special to me, like a rock or a branch. I, as if I haven't just turned 30, as if I am still like 5, will bring that back home to my altar and I will be like, look at this awesome shiny thing that I found. I want to share it with you. Plop, it goes. That is an offering of gratitude. What you're going to be doing is an offering of reminding yourself that you have a religion. this this works very well if you're like a forgetful person, or it's very hard for you to like keep a schedule, or you don't quite know what to do with yourself. For one thing, you introduce yourself to the spirit slowly by doing this. Secondly, you remind yourself that you have a religion, which is a great thing to do when you actually like physically want to keep that faith, but you just forget because brain, or don't quite know how to, which means that what you're going to offer is the things that are traditionally offered to spirits, which tends to be expensive things like alcohol. It used to be quite expensive, like good alcohol. Candy, because it is sweet and nice. Or water, because water is healthy for you and it is life-giving. So that tends to be like a generic spirit offering. What you're gonna do, I suggest using water, because if you're gonna be using alcohol, use like a very tiny amount of it. You're gonna either like run through your alcohol supply semi-fast, or somebody's gonna ask you, why are you wasting money? I mean, if you have all the money in the world, by all means, just be careful not to become an alcoholic. Um, Candy might be great, but it depends if you like candy and if you have a steady supply of candy to offer every week. So we're just gonna go with that cheap free thing that in most parts of the world, unless you're very unfortunate, come from your taps, and it's kind of drinkable. And if it is not drinkable from your tap directly, you can probably boil it and make it drinkable. We're gonna be going with water. So every single week, you're gonna approach your altar, you're gonna take it in, and you're gonna say something along the lines of, this is for you, spirit, and you're gonna present it with a cup of water. My cat is complaining right now. Um, yeah, Mao. It is once again to remind you of your own spirituality. 24 hours later, you're gonna come back and say, thank you for accepting this offering. I need to take this away so that it doesn't rot and become bad. And then you're gonna take that glass of water, you're gonna take it to your bathroom, spill it away, and you're gonna put your glass away. If you're in a world where you seriously lack water, just don't care about it, drink it. Some people feel very, very bad about wasting a thing, and that is absolutely understandable. Some people feel like it is rude to drink something that technically has already been drank by another person, like you wouldn't go into your friend's stomach to try and retrieve the things that they just ate. You wouldn't do that. But it all depends on which side do you fall. Do you think it is rude to drink an offering, in which case spill it away? Or if you think that it is wasteful to waste a good thing, in which case just, drink it yourself, which is why I said that if you're offering alcohol, you have to be kind of careful not to become an alcoholic. That can be a true problem, though I actually don't know what kind of strong alcohol, like you would need to offer a whole bottle in order to become an alcoholic of taking one drink a week. So if you're an adult, actually, maybe scratch that. Maybe it's not that bad. Um, that is an offering of reminding yourself that you have a religion, a way of familiarizing yourself with the space, a way of respecting the spirit, and a way of reminding yourself of the spirit. What happens if you forget? Do it on a different day? Well, what happens if you forget for a whole week? Nothing really. It's not medication. It's your spirituality. Your heart's not going to stop or explode from not doing it. Remember, once again, the offerings are more for you than it is for the spirit. Doesn't have a mouth to drink the offerings with, nor does it like have ears to hear any kind of offerings or anything like that. All of those like physical meaty sensations are here with us in the physical. But imagine your cat brings you a mouse and you're like, I obviously ain't gonna eat that, but it shows appreciation for you. You know, it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to do. And that is the kind of relationship that you're trying to foster. A nice one. Second thing that you're gonna, well, that's one, two. Third thing that you're gonna do, sorry, Mirta forgot how to count, is meditate. And this is going to be a seriously scary one, especially for some people that have trouble focusing. Right now, you have spent 25 minutes of your life watching this video. What are you doing? But it shows dedication. So I think that if you're still here, you definitely can focus, even if you're going to argue with me that you cannot. The purpose of meditation, especially thoughtless, sitting still meditation, is to figure out A, what is you? This is very important in any kind of spiritual connection. And B, what is your environment? Because your environment makes noises and shit. And normally, when you're sitting with headphones on all the time, or you're very focused and doing things, you don't actually notice that your environment makes noises and shit. You completely miss that. So, yeah, your environment makes noises and shit. It's good to be familiar with them. What you're gonna do in a thoughtless meditation, this is gonna be very hard. So, first of all, you're gonna set yourself an alarm for 5 minutes, and you're gonna be trying to do this daily because this is a skill that takes practice, and you don't wanna fall out of this routine because if you fall out of this routine for too long, you'll have to build it up back again. And life happens. You can end up in the hospital, you can end up traveling, you can end up in places where you can't do anything spiritual for weeks or months on end. But at that point, you kind of are building your practice back up from the bottom once you're actually in a place where you can do that again. So yeah, it's a thing to take seriously. You're gonna set yourself a timer on your phone for 5 minutes. And you're gonna sit down, and we're not gonna be doing any kind of breath work. We're not gonna be trying to sit in any particular position. You're just gonna plop yourself down somewhere, preferably in a way that is actually kind of comfortable for you. You're gonna close your eyes, and you're gonna sit there for 5 minutes. And it's gonna be boring. And because it's gonna be boring, your body is gonna be like, I wanna move. You're gonna feel a whole bunch of itchiness, pain, and discomfort, and you're gonna ignore that. You're not gonna move. And the second thing is, your mind will start running around in circles, trying to entertain itself. It's gonna try to be having a whole bunch of random thoughts, from what you should eat for dinner, to that nice video game that maybe you wanna play, to any number of things. You're not gonna follow that thought through. If you start getting a thought, which is your brain trying to interest you in doing something, like, hey, I wonder what would happen if I sewn a costume with bat wings, you're not actually gonna try and start arranging that. You're gonna just try and say goodbye to that thought by not following it through. You have observed it coming. You have observed it going. And that is it. You're not chasing it. You're not following it to its completion. You're just observing it passing. And you know what that does? It tells you what kind of thinky thoughts are normal for you to think. It makes you sit with yourself and it makes you know yourself. And this is very important for any kind of spiritual communication with the spirits. It's part of discernment. That's why you absolutely need to do it. If your environment starts doing crackle popping, or you hear electrical buzzing, or the movement of doors, or sounds of birds, or sounds of your windows cracking, or the weather, or all sorts of tiny noises that you're surrounded all the time, and you start to notice that, it's okay. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna let yourself notice that. You're not gonna chase it. You're not gonna get spooked by it. You're not gonna be like, oh my god, something very spooky is in the room with me. No, it's your environment, honey. That is how it always sounds. You're just normally not listening and not focusing on it. Now there's nothing else to focus on, so you're noticing it. And when inviting spirits into your place, it's very important to know what is the norm for your place. Because otherwise, how are you gonna know what is the spirit? That is why you're doing this. And stay at this step, I wanna say at least a couple of weeks, a couple of months of being able to do this every single day would be ideal. Now, if it turns out that the spirit that you have selected to worship is not compatible with you for a very long period of time, do not worry, because this is a great basis for any kind of spiritual practice with spirits. So it's a great component for you in general. Just like take it and apply it to your life. And do you stop doing that after those 2 months when you start doing, further movement? No, that just is something that you should be doing for the rest of your life. Just taking those 5 minutes out of your day, if you can. Once again, life has periods that are absolutely bullshit. Like, you won't be able to do anything about that. Like, life happens. Maybe you had a kid, and maybe you had to fall out of your spiritual practice for like 2 years straight. Maybe you're like in the military boot camp. Maybe you got very ill and got completely bedridden or landed yourself in the hospital. Maybe a disaster has happened. It is life. Life does life shit. It's impossible to spend your whole life being entirely consistent. It is something that you're gonna aim to do, but you're not gonna put yourself unnecessary stress, unnecessary guilt. If for some reason you cannot do that, it is okay. It is okay. You have to remember that. Also, don't prolong it too much. Like, wait a couple months and move forward with your practice, because here's the thing: when you wait too much, convincing yourself, I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready, I'm not ready yet, your expectations build and build and build and build and build, and nothing can match them anymore. Now, another peculiar thing. You might find that during that meditation practice in those couple of months, you start entering states when, with your closed eyes, you can see shit in your head. Like, for example, light tunnels. But sometimes it is very realistic places. It's almost like your brain is dreaming. It's like a very, very, very similar state. Do not get spooked. Perfectly normal. If you wanted to be like a really dedicated Buddhist or something like that, you would actually try to go through it and exit on the other side of that hallucinatory state, where once again you are not seeing any light tunnels. If you're just trying to have a practice with the spirits, that's not necessarily necessary. But once again, it's good to keep in mind what your brain does on its own with no spiritual intervention, so that, when you do sit down and meditate with a spirit, You don't go, oh my god, I saw a light tunnel, is that them? It can be your brain, honey. That can absolutely be your brain. And don't get me started on the people that say that spirits are internal and parts of your brain, because once again, spirituality is such a wishy-washy thing that you can see spirits as something that's outside yourself, or you can have an atheistic point of view of by inviting a spirit in, you're actually trying to reawaken qualities that you relate to inside of yourself, and you're actually just communicating with your own brain. Neither ways of looking at things is incorrect. It's just that if you're just starting, it can get very confusing. So don't think about that for now. We're just gonna treat spirits like they're external, unless you're an atheist and treating them like they're internal is more natural for you. In that case, sure, go with that. Um, don't don't fret the big existential stuff when starting a practice. You'll have years to try and figure out where you land on that scale. A lot of time, trust me. So, when you're gonna be prepared to start connecting with the spirits properly, there are several ways of actually like invoking and connecting to a spirit. Invoking means inviting into yourself, and this is not really possession, it's more like communicating with the spirit through your imagination instead of evoking, which is trying to get a physical portrayal of the spirit into your room, which is still gonna happen in your head. Other people aren't gonna see it. But that requires a special kind of very hallucinatory state of mind. A lot harder to pull off because, once again, you're messing with your brain case here. It is a lot easier to invoke, so that is where we're gonna start. I mentioned 3 methods in my book. If you want to hear all of them, go and read it. And here I am currently 35 minutes into this recording, and everybody's probably already asleep, so I should probably hurry my ass up. So for this case, just for this case, what we're gonna use is that sigil, that, sign of the spirit that you drew right there. You're gonna do your meditation, and you're gonna try and relax and like get into this good state of mind where you're slightly detached from everything that's happening around you, because you're not really thinking about your work or about your school or about your family or about what to make for dinner or about the fight that you had. Like, you're in your spiritual state doing your spiritual bullshit. And you're gonna be a bit more relaxed because, once again, you're not tense, you're not running around doing things. After your meditation practice, you're gonna take the sigil, the sign of the spirit that you have. You're gonna look at it intently. And you're gonna close your eyes. And you're gonna try and copy it inside your brain, behind your eyelids, with your imagination, which is a thing that humans can do. Trust me, if it is too hard, open your eyes, look back at it, close your eyes. Eventually, you're gonna do this. Eventually, you're gonna make it. And you wanna reach into that sigil and everything that it represents. So in your imagination, you can start pulling it towards you, pulling it closer, kind of like you're trying to step into it or through it. It makes a lot more sense if you're familiar with this methodology from other spiritual practice. For example, Golden Dawn has done that with tarot cards in order to learn from tarot cards. I forget what they're called. Archetypes. There we go. When they were trying to have conversations with the archetype, that is precisely what you do. You imagine the tarot and you try and pull yourself through it. You're trying to pull yourself through the sigil, through the name, through everything that represents. And as you're doing this, let yourself feel and let yourself listen with your mind and see what comes back. Some people suddenly feel cold or hot or heavy. Sometimes you can feel dizzy. You can feel like something else is there. Um, very, very rarely, but it has happened to me with one spirit. Um, my electrical equipment went a bit haywire and my lights in my room like started flickering, and I was like, ha ha ha, very funny. Like, turn it back on, and then the light actually came back on. Don't expect poltergeist activity, but I mean, I wouldn't entirely completely discount the possibility of that happening. If you're an atheist, you will be like, haha, funny synchronicity. If you're religious, you're gonna be like, well, that's definitely a sign of a spirit. Anyway, listen to your body, listen to your mind, and see if you can attempt to establish a connection. And if you can't the first time, that's okay. Try the next day, or the next day. Or try to get associations with the planets of the spirits and see when the planet is visible from your house. What time is the planet considered active? Because if you time your spiritual practice for that time, it might get easier. Eventually, if it is the right spirit for you, if you're knocking on the right door, eventually you will be answered. And at that point, it comes a beautiful time of like several months until you figure out how to actually communicate with the spirits. I find that the easiest thing for me to do is to interpret my own thoughts coming back to me as answers. I know that that might sound a bit kooky, but that's that's what faith is. That's how it goes, honeys. It becomes hard to distinguish what is you from what is not you, which is what the whole meditation practice was about. It can be hard to distinguish what is the spirit or what is your environment, which is what the whole meditation practice was about. Sometimes spiritual answers can come through those meditative visions that I was talking to you about before, and you then need to interpret the pictures that you saw. Sometimes it can be signs, sometimes it can be dreams. It is different for every single person. Don't compare yourself to other people. Now, one thing that is important to note is that your spiritual communication should never feel malicious, paranoia, anxiety, or fear inducing. If it is, that is part of you, and you probably have some either mental issues or religious traumas or something else that you're holding on to. In which case, look, if you're afraid of the spirit that you're trying to worship, perhaps switch to a different spirit. It's not a healthy feeling. Use your common sense. Are the answers that you're getting make sense? If they don't, can you interpret it? Some people get very spooky imagery, and it's not literal. The sign of death is a sign of transformation. It is not a literal death. Beelzebub can come with signs of bugs and signs of flies. It is something that I've experienced where I have reprogrammed my brain to see bugs as a positive thing. Because, for example, Beelzebub is a spirit of healing, but their sign is the fly, and everything that flies come with larvae, eggs. So I had quite a few of very unpleasant dreams of eating larvae, vomiting flies, having too many flies in my room, being unable to catch them all, thinking, where are all these flies coming from? And every single time when I'm having these dreams, I'm sick. And after having that dream, I will actually start to get better, and I will recover very fast after that point, which makes sense considering that Beelzebub is a spirit of healing and even exorcisms. So I ended up making this positive connection to that imagery, but do know that some of these spirits, they have very strong and unpleasant imagery, and Not that you're gonna actually be eating bugs. That's not what the spirit is telling you. It is just their imagery, just what what they're associated with, what they control. So disturbing images can be there. Don't interpret them literally. You need the same skill set as interpreting dreams, honestly, for that. Direct communication can be a lot easier to understand through thoughts, but then you need to filter yourself out because sometimes you really, really want something and you will be subconsciously changing that answer to a yes. Or sometimes you are really putting yourself down and you will subconsciously be yelling at yourself when that completely does not represent the advice that you're getting. Is just part of you and part of how brain interprets you. So once again, meditation is a great skill set to have there. Now, after this point, after you have established communication, um, if you need anything that the spirit can, do for you, this is where you would just ask. It is as simple as that. I have a far more expansive section in my book about it, but a couple of notes on asking anything. Your wishes should be realistic. There are a lot of people right now trying to escape this world. So they will get into things like reality shifting and living in a Harry Potter universe and what have you. It's not healthy because that person is living in their head. They're still here physically, they still have a life to continue. It's just that they're not focused on that life anymore. They're living entirely in some sort of dream world. This is not a grounded spiritual practice, and it is not something that I would ever recommend to run away with. Keep your wishes towards actual, realistic, actionable things. Second thing, don't wish too far into the future. I want to be a social media star. I want to be a world renowned surgeon. I want to be a world's greatest writer. All of those dreams, you might get there, you may not. But right now, you're not even on the staircase that's going in that direction. So reel it all the way back down to step one. Teach me how to have a good, successful social media channel. Let's start there. And when making that statement, you might end up running into a lot more advertisements of people telling you what are good practices, what are bad practices. That is how spirits work. Spirits work through the physical, through the real world, through other people. They sometimes can sort of information dump you, but most of the times they work by leading you towards what you need. If you want to write your first successful book, start with what genre should I take that will be accepted by a publisher, that will be accepted by the audience for me to write my first successful book. And you will continue consulting the spirit through the progress of should I get a proofreader? Should I just do this all myself? Should I modify something? Is this good enough to send to publishers? Which publishers should I send to? Will they do me dirty? Will they not do me? That is the kind of things that you would check in with the spirit, and that is how you would build your first book. That does not a world renowned author make, but it does a person with a singular book written make, which is step one. If you want to become a surgeon, then well, good grades, getting into med school, That sort of thing. There's a whole staircase until you can reach your dreams. You're not just gonna wake up where you want to be. But if you really want something, it can be a journey that's worth undertaking. Perhaps you'll get there, perhaps you'll get somewhere else, but it's still that one journey that we call life. Now, another good thing to remember is life things happen. Life happens to religious people, believe it or not. Just because you pray to a spirit does not mean that bad shit won't happen to you. You are in a aging meat bag. It's gonna develop health issues as it's gonna continue. That happens to literally everybody. Nobody died healthy. Like, I don't know, maybe that would be a very rare case and that would be a very lucky person. Other people also make decisions about you and around you and about things to do with the environment that you're in. You are, like it or not, subject to their decisions as much as they're subject to your decisions. So life happens. Just because you're religious doesn't mean that you're not gonna get in a car accident. You're not gonna get assaulted. You're not gonna develop health issues. And it's not that your gods are angry with you, it's that it is life on this planet that we're all living on. It is what it is. You can't avoid all of life, and it is good for your mental health and mental well-being to understand that point. I have wrote a lot more, but I will kind of leave you here for now. So if you want to hear more, you can, read my book. But for here, you have the basics, right? You know how to set up an altar. Hopefully, you know who you're setting up an altar to. Some people don't, and that is very problematic. Like, select the demon first. Like, that is step one. So you will build you know how to build an altar. You know how to make offerings just to remind yourself of religion. You know how to meditate. You know how to connect to the spirit. And you know how to ask them to help you with things. Because, well, a lot of people do that. Even if you're in a traditional religion, how many people pray? And pray for, make my mommy and daddy go back together, or make sure that, you know, I recover from this illness fast, or whatever. It's completely fine to have things that you want and to share that with your own personal spirits and to ask for them. The worst that you're gonna get is it is not a good idea. So I gave you the basics. If you want basics, but in a lot more expanded form, plus how to properly pray, plus more advice on petitioning, plus how to make some spells, then read the book in the description. 118 pages are hard to get through, but I promise a lot of that is sigils. So it's not 118 pages that you necessarily need to read. It is already cut down a little bit, and that is once again as basic as I can get. As easy to understand start as I can give you. I can't do anything less than that. Like, I can't cut it down even more. And this is where you'll have to pick up. And you'll have to also perhaps go out and later read other people's books. I know, might be daunting, but reading is a thing that people do and that you should do if you're, serious about things. This is gonna be more than enough for you to start a practice. But it requires effort, and you have to, be in the right state of mind to invest that effort, and you have to actually, invest that effort. So this is as down as I can get of an explanation of like giving the most basic of basics. And it still took me 53 minutes, and this is less than the book that I wrote, which is even, longer and takes longer to get through. And kids these days, they want a TikTok. And God, I couldn't ever sum up to you a faith in like a 1 minute video. It doesn't work, honeys. You actually have to have that attention span. I am sorry. So I tried. I hope that this helps somebody. If you have any questions, please ask in the comment section down below. Otherwise, if you want to support me, there's gonna be an Amazon link in the description, so you can go and you can pick up a copy if you found that this text has been helpful to you. It takes a while to write these, but this time I did not spend money on buying a cover. I do all of my work myself. So technically I invested $0, just a lot of my own hours into it. And I am poor, but so is the rest of the world. So while I am very stressed about what I'm gonna do with my living situations in the next 1 year, so is the rest of the world. So hello, pot and kettle, we're burning on the exact same fire, which is called late stage capitalism. If you can't do that, you can't do that. If you can do that, it is appreciated. Otherwise, the text is available to you entirely for free, and it will be kept in my Google Drive, which is where I'm getting the links and giving the links to people to view this, for as long as I can. Right? If something really bad happens to me and I go homeless or all my devices are suddenly switched off or whatever, then you still have the Amazon link. Well, hopefully that will still exist, but for as long as I can, I always try to give these things for free. I have 4 other books that are all also available for free. It's the kind of world that we're living in. People need access to spiritual resources. It is a shitty thing to do to charge money for it. So money, consider it a donation. If you can't do it, just have the thing for free. Look, we're in the same situation. We're sinking on the same ship. None of us are superior, none of us are inferior. It is what it is. I completely understand. So yeah, I hope that this video has been helpful for you. And when you see me again, I'm going to be streaming Morrowind, and I'm not going to be talking about these things. I try to keep my occult life and my gaming life separated because some people get freaked out by the occult life, and that is okay. That is fair enough. Can be scary. I understand. But sometimes they overlay. So when there's a gaming Mirta, I try to just focus on good vibes. I try to focus on the game itself. When it is the occult Mirta, this is where I sit down and I talk to you about what's close to my heart, about my own faith, about the books that I wrote, about the things that I do. Right? These are facets of the same human being. It is facets of me. I try to just keep the good vibes and gaming stuff going because it's easy, and it is easy for other people to relate to, and they don't necessarily need to be scared by the rest of me. So if you're still here, consider yourself privileged for seeing the rest of me. Like, no, wait, that sentence sounded really bad. You know what? Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. You have gone through a 57-minute video, if not slightly longer. That is amazing. Thank you for your attention, and I'm gonna see you on the other things on my channel. Toodaloo.